When I was a child, something about me always felt different. My father, Jacob, loved me dearly and gave me a special coat full of beautiful colors. This made my brothers very jealous because they believed our father loved me more than them. One day, I had a very strange dream. In the dream, my brothers and I were in the field binding sheaves of wheat. Suddenly, my sheaf stood upright, and the sheaves of my brothers bowed down to mine. When I told them about it, they became very angry. They couldn't hide how upset they were. Another day, I had another dream. This time, I dreamed that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. When I told this dream to my father and my brothers, my father was surprised and asked, "Will we really bow down to you?" My brothers were even more enraged, and their jealousy grew. I didn't know what these dreams meant, but I felt they were important. I had no idea that these dreams were the beginning of a great adventure, full of challenges and surprises that would change my life forever. After that last dream, the tension at home only increased. My brothers, already full of anger, secretly plotted against me. One day, my father asked me to go to the field to see how they were doing. I obeyed, without imagining what awaited me. When I arrived, I was met with dark, threatening looks. Before I could understand, I was grabbed and thrown into an empty cistern, a deep hole in the ground. Fear took hold of me. While I heard their voices above, discussing my fate, my heart pounded. They decided not to kill me, but to sell me to Ishmaelite traders who were passing by on their way to Egypt. Bound and sold for 20 pieces of silver, I watched my brothers walk away as I was taken far away to an unknown land. The journey was long and difficult. Upon arriving in Egypt, I was sold again, this time to a man named Potiphar, an official of Pharaoh. I worked hard in his house, trying to forget the pain and betrayal. Gradually, I gained Potiphar's trust, and he put me in charge of all his possessions. Everything seemed to be improving, but the peace wouldn't last long. Potiphar's wife, impressed with me, began to approach me too closely. She tried to seduce me several times, but I always refused, staying true to my principles. One day, furious at my rejection, she lied, saying that I had tried to attack her. Potiphar, believing his wife, was furious and sent me to prison. Once again, everything crumbled around me, and I found myself in a desperate situation, not knowing how I would escape that darkness. Prison was a very dark and sad place, but I never stopped believing that things could improve. At first, the days seemed endless, but soon the prison warden noticed something different about me. He trusted me and gave me the responsibility of looking after the other prisoners. That's how I met two important men, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker. The cupbearer had spilled wine on Pharaoh's table, and the baker had baked bread that didn't please the king. Because of this, both were imprisoned. They were sad and worried because they had had strange dreams and didn't know what they meant. I offered my help and asked God to show me the meaning of their dreams. The cupbearer told his dream first. He saw a vine with 3 branches that grew, blossomed, and produced grapes. He pressed the grapes into a cup and handed it to Pharaoh. I explained that the 3 branches represented 3 days, and in 3 days, he would be released and return to serving Pharaoh. The cupbearer was very happy with the interpretation. Then it was the baker's turn. In his dream, he was carrying 3 baskets of bread on his head, but the birds were eating the bread from the top basket. I told him that the 3 baskets also represented 3 days, but unfortunately, he would be punished, and the birds would eat his flesh. The baker was very sad at this news. 3 days later, everything happened exactly as I had said. The cupbearer was released and returned to his work, while the baker was punished. Before the cupbearer left, I asked him to remember me when he was back at Pharaoh's side, but he ended up forgetting about me. So, I continued in prison for another 2 years. But I knew that God was with me and that my story was not yet over. 2 years passed since the cupbearer forgot about me, but I never lost hope. I continued helping in the prison, keeping my faith in God. One day, something extraordinary happened. Pharaoh had 2 disturbing dreams on the same night. and became very anxious. He called all the wise men and magicians of Egypt, but no one could interpret his dreams. It was then that the cupbearer remembered me. Suddenly, I was urgently summoned to Pharaoh's presence. I was dirty and ragged, but they washed me, shaved my beard, and dressed me in clean clothes. When I arrived at the palace, Pharaoh was visibly anxious. He told me his dreams. In the first one, 7 fat and beautiful cows came out of the Nile River, followed by 7 thin and ugly cows that devoured the fat cows. In the second dream, he saw 7 full and good ears of wheat growing on a single stalk. But soon after, 7 dry ears, scorched by the east wind, swallowed them up. I listened carefully and felt God's presence guiding my interpretation. I told Pharaoh that the dreams were a divine message about what was about to happen in Egypt. The 7 fat cows and the 7 full ears represented 7 years of great abundance. The 7 thin cows and the 7 dry ears symbolized 7 years of famine that would follow. I explained to Pharaoh that he should act immediately. I suggested that he choose a wise and sensible man to manage Egypt and store 1/5 of the harvest during the years of abundance. This would ensure that there would be enough food during the years of famine. Pharaoh was impressed with the clarity of the interpretation and the wisdom of the plan. Then, something surprising happened. Pharaoh, impressed with my interpretation and the plan I suggested, did something unexpected. He appointed me governor of Egypt, the second most powerful man in the country. Only below him, I was given fine clothes, a gold ring, and a royal chariot. I was put in charge of preparing Egypt for the years of abundance and the years of famine that were to come. During the 7 years of abundance, I worked tirelessly to store as much grain as possible. I built storehouses in every city and organized an efficient system to collect and store the harvest. Each day, my responsibility and my faith in God grew. I knew my mission was to save many lives during the difficult times that were coming. The years of abundance passed quickly, and soon the 7 years of famine began. The drought was severe and spread across all lands. But Egypt was prepared. People from all over came to seek food, and Pharaoh fully trusted my leadership. It was then that, among the crowd of hungry people arriving, I saw familiar faces, my brothers. They had come to Egypt in search of food, not knowing that I, Joseph, was the powerful governor before them. My heart raced. I remembered all the years of suffering and betrayal, but also the promises and dreams I had when I was young. I decided not to reveal my identity immediately. I wanted to see if my brothers had changed. I treated them firmly and questioned them about their family. They told me about my father, Jacob, and my younger brother, Benjamin, who had stayed in Canaan. I accused them of being spies and demanded that they bring Benjamin to prove their honesty. I kept Simeon, one of my brothers, in prison, while the others returned to fetch Benjamin. The test was just beginning, and I needed to see if their repentance and change were real. When my brothers returned to Canaan to fetch Benjamin, my mind was filled with a mix of emotions. I needed to know if they had truly changed. Had repentance transformed them? Time passed slowly as I waited for their return. Finally, they arrived with Benjamin. Seeing my younger brother brought tears to my eyes, but I controlled myself. I prepared a banquet at my house and ordered everyone to sit in order of age, which left them perplexed. During the dinner, I observed every gesture, every word. When I served Benjamin a portion 5 times larger than the others, they showed no envy, only surprise. After the banquet, I filled their sacks with grain and secretly placed my silver cup in Benjamin's sack. As they departed, I sent my servants after them, accusing them of theft. When the cup was found with Benjamin, the brothers tore their clothes in despair and returned to my presence, begging for mercy. Judah, with courage, offered to stay as a slave in Benjamin's place, explaining that losing him would kill our father with grief. This demonstration of sacrifice and brotherly love was what I needed to see. I could no longer contain my emotions. I dismissed all the servants, and through tears, revealed my true identity. I am Joseph, the brother you sold into Egypt. My brothers were speechless and afraid, unable to speak. I comforted them, explaining that everything that happened was part of God's plan to save many lives. We embraced, and joy replaced fear and guilt. I informed Pharaoh about my family, and in an act of generosity, he offered them the best land in Egypt, Goshen, for them to settle. They prepared to bring my father, Jacob, and the entire family to Egypt, where we would finally be reunited. The news that my family was coming to Egypt brought immense happiness to my heart. Finally, after so many years of separation and suffering, we would all be together again. When my family arrived, I went to meet them in my chariot. When I saw my father, Jacob, I ran to embrace him. He was older and frail, but the joy in his eyes was evident. "My son Joseph is still alive. I can die in peace now that I have seen you again," he said, with tears of happiness streaming down his face. That moment was one of the most emotional of my life. The joy of reuniting with my father and seeing my family together was priceless. I took them all to the land of Goshen, where they could live and prosper. The following days were filled with activities. I arranged accommodations for everyone and made sure they lacked nothing. The famine continued to be severe across all lands, but there was enough food for everyone in Egypt. While my family settled into their new home, I continued to fulfill my responsibilities as governor, ensuring that God's plan was carried out and that everyone had what they needed to survive the difficult years still ahead. The days of reunion with my family were full of joy and relief, but soon I returned to my great responsibility as governor of Egypt. The time of the 7 years of famine was in full swing, and my job was to ensure that no one went hungry. The preparation we made during the years of abundance proved crucial, and Egypt was ready to face the scarcity. In the first years, the crops failed, and the drought spread across all lands. The news that there was food in Egypt spread quickly, and people from all regions came to buy grain. I organized everything carefully, ensuring that each family received the portion necessary to survive. While overseeing the distribution of food, I saw faces from all over the world, all with the same expression of hope and gratitude. The responsibility weighed on my shoulders, but knowing that we were saving lives gave me strength. Every day was a battle against hunger, but Egypt remained a beacon of hope for everyone. My family thrived in the land of Goshen. My brothers worked in the fields and tended the flocks, and our father, Jacob, found peace in the last years of his life. Our family bonds grew stronger, and we learned to value every moment together. The pain and betrayal of the past seemed distant, replaced by love and unity. One day, during the distribution of grain, I saw a group of people arriving with desperate expressions. Among them was an old and weary man, holding the hand of a young girl. Their clothes were worn out, and their eyes showed a long journey of suffering. As they approached, I realized that their stories were similar to so many others I had heard, but there was something about them that touched me deeply. When I asked about their story, the man said they had lost everything because of the famine, and that the young girl was his granddaughter, the only family he had left. As he spoke, I saw the pain in his eyes and knew I had to do more. I ordered that they be given a generous portion of grain and arranged a place for them to stay. The gratitude on their faces reminded me of the purpose of everything we were doing. Each act of generosity, each life saved, reinforced my faith and determination. The famine continued, but our preparation and God's blessing allowed us to face these difficult times with courage and hope. And so, Egypt remained a safe haven, proof that even in the worst crises, kindness and faith could prevail. In the years that followed, our family prospered. My brother's children grew strong and healthy, and our father Jacob enjoyed his last years surrounded by those he loved. However, even amidst so much happiness, a shadow of concern loomed over us. My brothers still carried the weight of guilt for what they had done to me. One day, Judah approached me in a moment of privacy. "Joseph, we cannot forget what we did. Even with your forgiveness, the guilt haunts us," he said with a choked voice. I looked into my brother's eyes and saw genuine remorse. I knew that true forgiveness had to be more than words. It had to be felt and lived. Then a new challenge arose. Our father, Jacob, fell seriously ill. His last days were filled with reflection and reconciliation. He called all his sons and blessed us one by one. When it was my turn, he held my hand and said, "Joseph, God chose you to save our family. Your path was difficult, but you were faithful. May your life continue to be a testimony of God's grace. With our father's death, the responsibility of leading the family fell on me. My heart was full of sadness at the loss, but also of determination. I needed to ensure that our family remained united and strong, even in the most difficult times. Jacob's death brought a new challenge, and my brothers, fearing that I harbored resentment, came to me seeking comfort and assurance. I embraced them and assured them that my forgiveness was real. The evil you intended against me, God turned into good to save many lives. The unity and love we now shared were living proof of the power of forgiveness and faith. With our lives intertwined by God's hand, we moved forward, ready to face the next challenges that life had in store. While the famine continued to ravage other lands, Egypt remained a beacon of hope, thanks to our preparation and divine blessing. People from all over still came seeking help, and I was determined to continue serving with integrity and compassion. Each new day brought new faces and new stories, and my journey of faith and leadership was far from over. One day, while overseeing the storehouses and the distribution of food, I received a visit from a group of foreigners. Among them, an elderly man stood out. He had a wise and serene look, and his eyes sparkled with a mix of curiosity and respect. He approached me and said, "I have heard of your wisdom and kindness, Joseph. Your story has reached our land, and we have come to learn from you." I felt a great honor hearing these words. I told them about my journey, the difficulties I faced, and how faith in God guided every step. They listened attentively, absorbing every detail. I realized that my story was not just about survival and leadership, but also about inspiring others to keep their faith and hope in difficult times. As the sun set, marking the end of another day of work, I looked out at the horizon and felt a deep sense of gratitude. I knew many challenges still lay ahead, but I was ready to face them with the same faith and determination that had brought me this far. Time passed, and the years of famine came to an end. The land began to recover, and the crops started growing again. Egypt flourished once more, and so did our family. Then one day, while we were working in the fields, a messenger from Pharaoh arrived with an urgent message. Pharaoh wanted to discuss a new plan to expand the grain storehouses and prepare Egypt for future crises. I immediately went to the palace to meet with him. When I arrived, Pharaoh was surrounded by his advisors. He greeted me with a smile and said, "Joseph, your wisdom saved our kingdom from famine. I want to ensure that we are always prepared for any adversity. We need new storehouses, more efficient and well distributed throughout the country." I accepted the challenge with gratitude and began planning. I visited various regions of Egypt, discussing with local leaders and identifying the best places to build the new storehouses. Each journey reminded me of God's promises and the importance of our mission. During one of these journeys, I encountered a young mother and her small child, both visibly hungry and tired. They had traveled for days in search of food and were on the verge of despair. Their clothes were tattered, and their faces reflected the harsh reality of the famine. I stopped to speak with them and learn more about their story. The mother, with tears in her eyes, told me about the devastation the famine had caused in their land and how they had lost everything. The boy, weak, held her hand tightly. I offered them food and shelter, assuring them that they would be safe and receive the help they needed. As they thanked me with emotion, I felt a renewal in my faith and determination. I knew that even with the challenges we faced, our work was making a difference. The construction of the new storehouses was more than a logistical task. It was a divine mission to protect the future of many generations. As the construction of the new storehouses progressed, my mind was constantly occupied with plans and strategies. Pharaoh and I worked together to ensure that Egypt was always prepared for any future crisis. But amidst all these responsibilities, my family continued to be my greatest source of inspiration and strength. The land of Goshen flourished under my brother's care. Our sons and daughters grew up in an environment of love and prosperity, learning from an early age the importance of faith, hard work, and family unity. I watched with pride as the younger ones ran through the fields, their laughter filling the air with contagious joy. One day, While walking through the fields of Goshen, I met my brother Benjamin. He, who had always been the youngest and most protected, had now become a strong and full of life young man. We sat together under the shade of a tree and talked about our dreams and hopes for the future. "Joseph," Benjamin said, "sometimes I wonder what our lives would be like if all these things hadn't happened. But at the same time, I see how God used each difficulty to shape us and bring us together." His words resonated deeply in my heart. The journey we had walked was full of challenges and pains, but every moment brought us closer to the divine purpose. And now, here we were, with a strong and united family, ready to face whatever came our way. As we were sitting there, a messenger approached us, running. "Joseph, a delegation from distant lands has arrived at the palace. They heard about Egypt's wisdom and prosperity and have come seeking alliances and advice." I stood up, ready for another mission. "Benjamin, take care of our land while I'm away. There's much to do, and each of us has an important role to play." I arrived at the palace and was welcomed by the delegation. They were leaders from different nations, all eager to learn from Egypt's experience. As we talked, I shared with them the importance of preparation, faith, and unity. I showed them the plans for the new storehouses and explained how God had guided us at every step. The exchange of knowledge was enriching. I learned about their cultures and the challenges of their lands, and together we sought solutions to face adversities. It was a moment of collaboration and growth, where God's wisdom manifested itself through every word and action. At the end of the day, as the delegation departed, I felt a renewed sense of gratitude for everything we had achieved. But I knew that our journey was far from over. New challenges and opportunities awaited us, and with faith and determination, we were ready to face them together. And so, looking back, we see how every challenge Joseph faced was not just a test of his faith, but also divine preparation for something greater. Joseph's story teaches us that even in the most desperate situations, there is always a greater purpose being shaped. Now, think about your own life. What challenges are you facing? How can you apply Joseph's faith, perseverance, and wisdom to overcome your difficulties? Remember, every obstacle can be a disguised opportunity, a necessary step towards something grand that is yet to come. Are you ready to turn your adversities into opportunities? Are you willing to seek the greater purpose that may be hidden in your daily struggles? Reflect on this and share your answers in the comments. Your journey of faith and growth may inspire many others. And if you want to continue learning and being inspired by stories like Joseph's, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. That way, you'll be the first to know when new videos are released. Let's embark together on this journey of discovery and transformation.